I just put this Ryobi Jig Saw to the ultimate test. How it held up shocked me. Now, I'm sure you can get this both ways, and I'll leave links down in the description, but what I got here is just the Jigsaw only, no battery, no charger, because I already had that from other Ryobi tools that I have, which is the nice thing. If you have the Ryobi One Plus battery platform, it powers routers, finishing nails, jigsaw, so I already had the battery, so I just picked up the tool. So what comes in the box is the tool itself with some cardboard inserts. You've got all of your product registration, operator's manual, stuff like that. And you have they give you a starter blade and an Allen key, which I'm sure will be important at some point. Okay, first impressions on this. One, this is way more weighty. It's heavier than I thought it would be. Pretty interesting. Also a little bit bigger than I thought it would be. And also keep in mind, I haven't even installed the battery yet. It comes with this little protective case that's on the base of the saw. This is kind of like a hard plastic that you definitely could keep. I don't really know that I will keep it because this is metal right here, but you could keep this if you wanted to. I think that's a nice little addition. So this jigsaw comes at a pretty good price point, and with that you're getting just basically the essentials, but I'll kind of run over the features really, really quickly. You of course have your trigger right here that starts your saw. You have a lock so that you can't pull the trigger back, and then you have, okay, you can't lock the trigger back, so there's no like lock on position, but this lock basically is a safety that will keep you from starting the saw if you don't want to. To install the blade, you can do this without any tools. I really, really like that a lot. I'll show you an up-close shot here of this. But basically, you just twist this little cap, and the blade slides right in. Keep in mind, there are different jigsaw blades for wood, metal. I think there's jigsaw blades that are like wood that might have nails in it. So make sure in your shop you have a good set of jigsaw blades. I'll link to a few down in the description that I think are good. But this is just a normal wood jigsaw blade that they include for you. Right here, there's this little dial, and there's 4 different orbital modes or orbital settings that you want to make sure you adjust depending on the type of material that you're cutting. Now, the settings are 0, 1, 2, 3. I don't know why they didn't do 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's 0, 1, 2, 3. They give you notes right here in the operator's manual about what each setting is designed for. You want to set your orbital setting to 0 if you're cutting either thin sheet metal or like countertop, laminate, things like that. You want this to be on mode 1 if you're either cutting plastics, PVCs, or doing scrolling cuts in wood, so cuts that are like very curved. Set it to number 2 if you're doing hardwood decking or plywood. Setting number 3 if you're doing just kind of like general plywood or softwoods. 0 means there is no orbit whatsoever. 3 is maximum orbit. So, 1 is a little bit of orbit, 2 a little bit more orbit, and 3 is a little bit more orbit. Now, you might be wondering, as I'm talking about all these different orbital settings, like what is orbit versus no orbit? Basically, what it is imagine that this pin is the jigsaw blade. And if you have no orbit, the jigsaw blade is just going up and down like this. It's staying in a complete vertical line. When you have maximum orbit, or when you have orbit, it's almost doing like kind of a oscillating or pendulum type movement. And I can't really explain all the science behind it, but when you have this orbit, it will allow you to cut faster and more efficiently. However, there are some materials, like I just talked about, that you don't want to have that orbit on, basically, because it's going to lead to hurting your blade or tear out or not cutting correctly or accurately. So once again, reference the manual when deciding what materials you should have. No orbit, minimum orbit, or maximum orbit, but that's what it is. When I say orbit, it's just like this. The reason they give you this Allen key is so that you can adjust the bevel on your jigsaw. There are 2 Allen keys right here that you can simply loosen. And then on the back of the jigsaw, it tells you what degree you're at. I would only trust this, if you're doing very rough stuff, because if you're wanting to get like an exact 90 degree or 45 degree, I think I'd probably use a square or digital angle gauge or something like that. One thing that is nice though is that for some of the like typical bevels that you might have, like 45 degrees, there's these little notches that you can see that you can kind of fit your blade into, or excuse me, you can fit your cutting surface into, so it kind of locks you in at those typical angles, kind of like how a miter saw does sometimes. Now, one thing that is not unique to this jigsaw, it's just something that Ryobi does with all of their One Plus tools, is the battery indicator is on the battery, which I really, really love. I think I talked about this in other videos, but you don't have to go like plug a battery into a tool to then see how much life is in the battery. That never really made sense to me, so I love that battery indicators are on the battery, and then when you go to plug the battery in, you can just quickly still see, of course, how much fuel you have in your battery. I like that feature. So I got my battery plugged in, and this is just kind of gonna be my first test firing this thing up. Whoa. Oh, hey, you have an LED light, by the way, that comes on only when you pull the trigger. So it doesn't stay on afterwards. There's no delay, cut off. It's just when the trigger's on, lights on, trigger's off, lights off. This is very quiet, but it also feels really powerful. That's on no orbit. It's also responsive, so it's not all or nothing. If I barely pull the trigger, and then if I, pull the trigger all the way back, it's going full blast. Let me see if you can see this orbit really quickly. Okay, so to test out this jigsaw, I'm going to cut out a little template for a charcuterie board on this piece of hard maple. So, by the way, I'm going to use this little template from Crafted Elements. If you're interested in how I use these templates to make full-on charcuterie boards, I'll leave a link down in the video description where you can check that out, because these are super, super handy. But what I'm going to do is just kind of figure out where I want this to be. I'm going to make that a little bit off-center here. I'm just going to show you guys, the cutting out of this. I'm not going to make a full charcuterie board in this video or anything like that, but outline this. Oops. Sweet. So we're going to cut this out with the jigsaw. Also, just something to keep in mind for charcuterie board purposes, I'm going to get as close to this line as possible, but not touch it. So when it comes to testing out this jigsaw, I want to see how well it can scroll, how well it can stay on the line that I want to stay on, how well it can cut through some pretty thick maple, which is a pretty hard wood. So we're about to test all those things out right now. I've drilled a hole here so I can get my blade inside this circle to cut all this out. Okay, so just got back in from cutting up this charcuterie board here with this jigsaw here. Now, this is kind of the ultimate test for a jigsaw, in my opinion, because maple is a very, very hard wood. If you kind of look at like the scale of softwood to hardwood, maple is, it's a more dense wood than even like black walnut, cherry, and a lot of the other more common hardwoods that you might be working with. And this is about 1 inch thick, maybe 7/8 of an inch thick. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I would not cut anything that is more dense or thicker than this board right here with any jigsaw. And this Ryobi jigsaw held up really, really well. It powered through this. I didn't feel like I was having to like force anything. I didn't have this is kind of a short board, so I didn't have a lot of spot to like press down. So every now and then the board would kind of get away from me a little bit, but that was more just like, this is a short board, nothing to do with the jigsaw here. Another thing that's important with the jigsaw is you want to get your scrolling really, really good. And you can see here, you know, it's not going to be the same as a bandsaw, but this is really, really good scrolling for a jigsaw. The way this template works is I'll come back and clean this up later with a router to give this really smooth edges. But you're just trying to cut out the rough shape with a jigsaw, and this did a great, great job. By the way, if you're interested in seeing me finish up this charcuterie board and then take it to a crafts show and try to sell it, subscribe to the channel. Love to have you around for woodworking projects, tool reviews, that kind of stuff. But back to this jigsaw here, scrolling, amazing. The way it powered through a really tough material, amazing. Let's check our battery life here. All right, so we're at 3 out of 4 bars. So I'm gonna go ahead and say battery life is amazing as well. Y'all, I'll be honest, I bought this tool with my own money. I was gonna review it, and my plan was just to sell it used after I reviewed it. I'm keeping this in my woodworking shop. My previous jigsaw is a Craftsman jigsaw that's not battery powered, it's corded. I feel like this is more powerful than that Craftsman jigsaw, and this is battery powered. I mean, I don't know, I have traditionally been kind of a Ryobi hater, but I've reviewed this, I've reviewed the router, which is also on the One Plus system, and I don't know, they're kind of making me a believer, y'all. I just gotta say it, they're kind of making me a believer. Once again, they're not paying me to say this. Ryobi has no clue I'm making this video. So all in all, I would recommend this jigsaw. If you just need a jigsaw to do exactly what I just did, make rough cuts from time to time, this will meet all your needs, in my opinion. So highly recommend. I think it is a great, great value. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, check out one of these 2 videos. I promise you'll like them as well. I cannot wait to see you in one of these videos.